Hello there, bestie, and welcome to the Empower and Evolve podcast. I am your host, Kat. I will be your guide on this transformative journey. I'm a hypnotherapist and a mindset coach that is here to reconnect you to your most empowered and liberated self. This podcast is a space where we will explore the vast landscapes of mindset, career, business, cyclical living, energetics, spirituality, and beyond. I invite you to join me as we traverse these expansive topics, igniting the spark of liberation within you and setting the stage for an empowering evolution into your most authentic self. Without further ado, it's time to plunge into today's episode. Well, hello there, gorgeous, and welcome back to another episode of the Empower and Evolve podcast. I'm very, very excited to be recording this podcast for you. I'm also a little bit nervous. I just finished and completed a 3-day speaker training with Elizabeth Ann Walker and Sally Prosser. And for those of you who may not know what speaker training is, it's basically a training that teaches you how to speak in public, whether it is on stages around the world, presenting keynotes and speeches, whether that's even on your social media. It can really be transferred into any area of your life where you do public speaking. And I did the training because I wanted to take my skills of public speaking to the next level and really learn how to convey my story and my message to inspire more people. And I gained exactly that. The training was transformational. I was really surprised that about 2 hours into the training, I had a lot of emotions come up, like crazy amounts. I was sitting there and, the training started with straight away, everyone had to introduce themselves and share what they do and why they do. And then we started to kind of traverse the training, and we quickly got thrown into an exercise to do an audio logo and to share about 3 things that are our strengths, like something to brag about, why we are the right person for our clients. And I was hearing everyone else talk and ask questions, and I just had these big feelings of not enough come up, like inadequacy. And I really started to question myself on why I'm even there. And I started to question what I do for a living and whether I'm even good enough. And I was like, oh, okay, here we are again. This is a familiar feeling. This is something that I've been working on for a long time. And yet I was surprised that it came up because I thought I was feeling pretty good. And then these feelings of inadequacy just came up. And I was literally, we had a lunch break and I was sitting and eating my lunch, which was actually like 9 p.m. our time because the training was in Australia time. So it started at 5 p.m. and went until 2 a.m. my time. But like during their lunch break, I was sitting there eating my dinner and I was like, maybe I don't want to go back. And, this isn't my first rodeo. I've been in personal development for a while. So I know these feelings. And I know that when these feelings come up, it's the chance to up level again. And yes, it would be so much more comfortable to be like, oh, this is my intuition talking to me, telling me to not go ahead with this. And I should just stay here in my comfort zone. I know better. I know that these feelings of discomfort and these triggers come up when it's time to lean in, when it's time to actually get curious and be like, huh, I wonder why these feelings are coming up. I wonder what this is teaching me. Like, I get curious. And I'm very glad I had these feelings early on because, I leaned into the discomfort and I showed up after lunch. And when it came time to share my audiogram, or my audio logo, sorry, I was still feeling that way. And I was just in a space of, well, fuck this. Fuck everything. Who cares? I couldn't write my script because I just couldn't formulate it. And I tried and rewritten it so many times during that lunch break. And I just had that fuck it moment. And I was like, fuck the script. And something, I think it was Sally shared early on in the training was speaking really comes from the body and dropping into your body and speaking from your heart, basically. So in that moment, I decided that I was going to do that. Fuck the script and just drop into my body and speak from my heart. So I shared my audio logo, and the feedback was amazing that I got from Sally and Liz. Liz looked at me and said, Kat, I have never seen such vulnerability in you. And Liz knows me pretty well now. I've done a lot of trainings with her. She has seen me have breakdowns. So to get that feedback was really empowering. And I kind of shared all my feelings and everything that had come up for me after I shared my audio logo. And it was then that Sally said, oh, you've learned one of the most important lessons, FTS. Fuck the script. So that was really key for me really early on in the training. Because as we continued our exercises and as we continued speaking and sharing the different things we learned, I really had that point of view to just ditch the script and to speak from my heart. And that really served me throughout the training. I found the training really transformational, which was a surprise to me, considering, it's just public speaking training. But because it really forced me to look at myself, to get clear on my journey, to get clear on some of the key lessons of my journey, to start bragging about myself and actually see my potential and see my magnificence, I had a lot of breakthroughs. And one of them was actually, we had been given homework after day one to complete this part of the training where we had to write down like the things that we're most proud of, 5 big like financial business milestones we've hit, our biggest mistakes we've done, the biggest lessons we've learned, and we kind of had to write it all out. And it was like one of those questions was, how many people have you impacted and helped? That have paid for you, that have been free, blah 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 blah, basically like throughout your journey. And it was that exercise that actually also made me have a big realization, because I started to think about, well, okay, like how many people have I actually impacted? I've been a yoga teacher for 7.5 years. So that was kind of the first thing that I started doing to really make a positive impact on people and help them. So I started to kind of add up the amount of people that have been from my yoga classes. And even here in Golden, I get people to sign waivers and etc. So over the 2 years that I've been teaching here, I've actually had over 300 people come through my yoga classes. What? Crazy. Like I had never even thought about it that way. And then I thought about the 5 years that I was teaching yoga in Revelstoke and how many people were there and I had gone through my classes. And then I thought about the people who I had helped through my network marketing business. I mean, I grew my business back then to a space where I had over 200 team members. So them and their clients and all the people who've taken my courses, my one-on-one clients, the people listening to my podcast, the people on my like Instagram, and I added it all up and I was like, oh, it's over 1,000 people. So I shared that with my coach and she was like, Kat, it's probably more like 10,000 people, because think about the ripple effect that you've had by teaching these people and positively impacting them, and then them going out there and sharing this with their networks and helping their people. And I was like, it was a big moment, because I really am challenged by seeing my own greatness. Or I guess I should say in the past, I've been really challenged with seeing my own greatness and thinking like, who am I? And doing that exercise, I had a big realization about how many people I've actually helped. And it's like thousands and thousands and thousands of people over the years that I've been doing this line of work, starting with yoga and now into coaching, etc. And I was like, wow, Incredible. So that was a really big takeaway as well. And the other really big piece, and I'm going to share that story with you here in a moment. The other big piece was we had to create a defining moment story as our final speech. And at first, I had my defining moment in my head. Like I've shared it before in the past. It's around like when I first started to coach, etc. Um, and like being coached and what that gave me. But then I had told Sally and Liz that next week I will be at a women's festival of 500 attendees and I will be hosting a workshop. And I really wanted to make an impact on that workshop. So the ladies encouraged me to create my defining moment story from the view that I could weave it into my workshop. And my workshop at the festival is around masculine and feminine energetics. And if I think back to like what this has really taught me is for me, it's really taught me to be in my feminine and to ditch my masculine ways of being. So then I thought back to like my defining moment of starting to get coached, and I was like, that's not it. That's not the defining moment that started me on this journey of reclaiming my feminine. So I really had to take some time after day two when I went for a walk with my dog, and I really like thought about it, like, what's the defining moment that has led me to where I am? And it hit me. And I'm just going to share it with you. I've actually, this is like, I can count the amount of people who know about this story. Well, now more because I shared it on speaker training. But before that, I could count them on my two hands who knew about this. So it was a big deal. I've never publicly shared about it. It's a very, in a way, vulnerable story. And I was like, that was the moment. So that was huge for me to actually start looking at the defining moments in my life through the different lenses of who I am and the different aspects of me, and being able to point back to what defining moment led me to this decision, this decision, this decision. I kind of distinguished them that way. So yesterday I had my coaching call with my coach, and she asked me, like, what was my biggest takeaway, and what will I be implementing moving forward? So my biggest takeaway was like all the things I kind of just shared with you. And then the thing that moving forward is just dropping into my body and speaking from my body, and not, having a script prepared and knowing exactly what I was going to say when. And it's been really pivotal. And I'm really excited to share this story with you now, and hope that it will inspire you. So I'm curious. And you can do this in your mind as I guide you through this. Or maybe if you are in the space, you can actually do it. If you're listening to this, I'm curious, do you resonate with calling yourself a strong, independent woman? Like, raise your hand if that's you. And now keep your hand up if you're not burnt out. Keep your hand up if you're in a passionate, loving relationship. Keep your hand up if you have supportive friendships around you. Keep your hand up if you're actually truly confident, and keep your hand up if you truly, truly are fulfilled in your life. I am curious how many of you could actually keep your hand up for all of those 5 statements. I bought into the story of needing to be a strong, independent woman. And I had to learn how it was actually cock blocking me from living my most fulfilling life. And today, I'm going to teach you about masculine and feminine energetics so that you can learn about this too. Let me take you back to 1990 into post-Soviet Union Estonia. I was brought up by a single mom. And back in that time, she had to sacrifice so much to take care of myself and her. She actually had to sacrifice being there for me. And she ended up having to go and work away to be able to earn money to provide me with a good life. And my mom was my hero. I looked up to her. So as a young child, I quickly, unconsciously, picked up the belief that in order to be successful and help others, I had to make a ton of sacrifices and become a strong, independent woman. My mom ended up remarrying about 5 years later, and we moved to Germany, and our life changed for the better. Suddenly, we were able to allow ourselves lots of beautiful things. And my mom was there and she was at home, and it was great. Life was great. And my mom looked at me and said to me, marry a wealthy man and you will be looked after. But the story was already there. I was going to be the wealthy man because I am a strong, independent woman that can do it all. And I started to live my life. I've traveled a lot and I have lived and worked in 5 countries on 3 continents. Being accustomed to change and looking after myself and being a strong, independent woman was very familiar to me. And I ended up finding my husband whilst traveling the world and living in a different country. And we started to travel the world together. And then I started the business. And my business was going to be my ticket to have freedom and a fulfilling life, to live out the dream of being a strong, independent woman, of becoming the wealthy man that was going to take care of me. I was going to be that. And I sacrificed everything for that business. I sacrificed time with my friends. I sacrificed self-care. I sacrificed fun. I even sacrificed my relationship to my husband. And it had gotten to the stage where I wasn't even sure whether we would make it. I was thinking about divorce. And my husband and I ended up traveling to Europe to see our parents. And I was on the plane. And suddenly, I couldn't feel the full left side of my body. I was completely numb on the left side of my body. It was scary. The only sensations I could feel when I was touching my skin was pins and needles. But I was a strong, independent woman. So I didn't have, time to think about this. And I was just like, oh, I just won't tell anyone. It will go away. Only it didn't go away. I was in the shower the next day and I couldn't feel the water touching the left side of my body. It was that moment that I realized I couldn't do it alone. So I shared it with my husband. We ended up in the emergency room in the UK. So many tests, all the testing, blood tests, x-rays, this, that, like so many tests, only to find nothing. The doctors couldn't find anything wrong with me. Yet here I was with no sensations in the left side of my body. And then the doctor looked at me and he said to me, it might be MS. It's worth looking into. My heart dropped into my stomach. I felt like I was going to be sick. I felt like I was going to throw up right there and then. I'm only 29 years old. I can't have MS. This can't be it. And then I heard a voice inside my head. Kat, you are burnt out. You have been go, 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 go for your whole life. You have sacrificed so much, and you have not been listening to me. This was my final chance to get you to listen. And I realized I couldn't continue life like that. It was in that moment that I realized that I had to redefine what success looked like to me. I have been on a 5-year quest of refamiliarizing myself with the feminine and what it meant to build a life on my terms, where I put myself first, where I fill up my cup before I fill others' cup, where I engage in play and creativity, and I allow myself to be supported, and I allow others in. I ditched my story of being a strong, independent woman, and instead, I became a force to be reckoned with. My marriage is beautiful. We have been together for over 10 years, and these days, it is so filled with passion and love. And it's only getting better. And this is because I allowed myself to soften into the feminine. And through that, invited my husband to step into his masculine. I have helped over thousands of people to stop the inner chatter and to stop overthinking and instead get back into their bodies and reconnect with what truly matters. And I have built a 6-figure business based on the feminine principles of business. Because it wasn't until I truly surrendered to my feminine that I hit my first 6-figure year, 7 years into being in business for myself. This is my story. This is what has led me to learn and embody what it means to be reacquainted with my feminine. And I am so grateful that I now get to be the light that guides other women to be here as well, that teaches them to reacquaint themselves with their feminine. If this is you, you know what to do. Thank you for listening. I love you. Thank you for tuning into the Empower and Evolve podcast today, my dear bestie. If you found this episode inspiring and elevating, I would love for you to consider expressing your support by taking a moment to rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Help me extend the ripple of empowerment by sharing this podcast with those in your circle who may resonate with it. And if this episode has struck a chord within you, I extend a heartfelt invitation to share your experience on Instagram, and make sure to tag me at It's Coach Kat, and let's spread the love together. Until we reunite in the next episode, may your journey be filled with empowerment, evolution, and the unwavering pursuit of your most authentic self. Now go and liberate yourself. And until next time, take care, my dear bestie.